This podcast is on a mission to end the orphan crisis. You're listening to Family's the Answer, powered by Podcast Network Asia. We share resources and stories to equip families who plan to adopt and foster, empower advocates who fight for vulnerable mothers and children, and invite communities to impact generations. I'm Chrina Henson, the Executive Director for Generations Home, a nonprofit organization and licensed child placement agency based in the Philippines. Learn more about our work through our website, generationshome.org. Now, let's jump in to this week's topic. All right. Well, hi, Kevin. Hi, Ashley.
Hi.
Everybody, we are really, really excited to be joined by Kevin and Ashley Wickham today. They've become really great friends of ours. And I say that not just ours at like our family, but ours at Generations Home. And I think many of you have heard us talk about the partnership that we've had with Kids with Purpose International around some of the independent living programs that we have together. And it's been such an honor to be able to do this with you guys.
Thank you.
Yes. I can't, I've learned so much from you guys, and thank you for saying yes to doing the podcast. We were thinking that it's a great opportunity to share with the world and to I don't know how many people listen to our podcast, but to the handful of people that listen to our podcast, a little bit more about the work that you guys have done around the independent living program. We kind of just mobilize things for you guys on this side of the world, but you guys have really helped shape the work that's happening in this space. And so thank you for all that you guys do. I guess to get us started, could you guys just do a quick introduction? Like, tell us about yourselves, your family, and what brought you into this work.
Okay, so my name is Ashley. Kevin and I have been married for 12 years.
Wow.
Yes, 12 years. And we have 2 children. Anderson, our son, he is 9 years old, and Everly, our daughter, is 6. And how I got involved in this kind of work really is I can only say that God had led me to it. And so I ended up giving my life to Christ in college. And coincidentally, I went to a Christian university. And so because I was at a Christian school, when I found the Lord, I just started taking all the classes I could to learn about him and who he was. And one of those classes that I took was cross-cultural ministries. And it was during that class that my professor really took an interest in me. She really wanted to invest in me. And so she had encouraged me that once I graduate, that I should go on a missions trip. So I had learned enough in that class to know that like short-term mission isn't super impactful. And so I didn't want to do one of the large group things. I want to do something more meaningful. And so I was just talking to a friend about that. And it just so happened that her mother-in-law was running an orphanage in the Philippines. And so it wasn't on my radar at all. God really orchestrated the steps. And so I met with her mother-in-law, and I got on a plane and flew out here for the summer.
How old were you?
I was 22, I believe.
Okay.
I was 22. I had just graduated college. And so I spent my summer here really just learning what was going on, the work that God was doing here in the Philippines. Mm-hmm. Really, it was probably the first time my eyes were open to the orphan crisis, right, and like really seeing what was going on in other nations. It wasn't on my radar before. And so when I saw everything that God was doing here, I wanted to be a part of it, and in whatever capacity that was. And so when I came back, I just worked really hard to maintain relationship. I reached out to the staff. I talked with them. I supported the ministry. Everywhere I'd go, I'd talk about it, kind of I would raise awareness to the people that were in my life and make them aware of what was going on here.
Right.
Yes. And so that's how that started.
Well, thanks for doing that. And I think it's just really nice for me as a Filipino to hear your heart, because it's been close to 2 decades maybe, right? Of kind of just sewing into the Philippines, and to hear that a 22-year-old would do like a one short-term missions trip, fly halfway around the world, and develop this deep love for our country and for our children, I think is just something that is really blesses my heart. And I know is really encouraging for a lot of people to hear, because that's totally outside of your comfort zone. I mean, when you're like, go outside of your comfort zone, that's like so far beyond that. Right. And yeah, I want to hear more about your experiences, but Kevin, do you want to just introduce yourself, and as well as like your background professionally? I know that, caring for vulnerable children is something that you do professionally. And yeah.
Kevin, Ashley, and I married for a long time, like she talked about. And I actually was working in the child welfare system in the United States in Texas for about 14 years. Okay. So I was a frontline caseworker in the field every day, working with children that were already removed from their families. And for about half that time, my job was to try to help the family get back together. Okay. So providing services, getting everybody connected, monitoring, and then hopefully reunifying and children going back home successfully. And
from what I understand, that's what in our context would be the equivalent of like a social worker.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. We just referred to them as like
caseworker.
Yeah, caseworkers, but you're doing social work every day. Yeah. Trying to reunify families. For the children that don't go home, you're working to get them equipped either for adoption or for long-term care in the foster system, and then helping them to age out and become successful on their own.
Right.
So I did that for quite a while. And then I moved into where I was only working with a very select group of kids that were from different parts of our humongous state. And I was kind of their frontline caseworker as well, coordinating with another caseworker on their case. But it was always in those contexts of either trying to help the children get the services they need, reunify, do whatever we can to get that family unit back together.
Right.
And then now I've transitioned over to a different agency, and now we're doing more proactive work with my agency, my other state agency, to try to prevent children from returning into the system if they were adopted previously out of the child welfare system, or to keep kids in the home with just their biological parents. So we're doing proactive work to keep families together.
Which is so great. And like, I think, you're no stranger to like the space of adoption and foster care as well. And just working with children and helping meet some of those needs, no matter how extreme they might be. I think the way I see you is you're this advocate for these young people, right? And they need someone on their side, and that's you. And that's really what the role of a caseworker is, right? To advocate for these young people.
And especially I know for sure in the US system where I am, average career plan of a caseworker, social worker is about 6 months.
Wow.
So I made it 14 years because I was like, I'm called to this work. and my success is, varied, but also like being able to stay with a child from when they came into the system until they, turned 18, 21 or whatever it was. And they had one social worker their whole time. And it was me.
Wow.
It was really important because those kids knew that, hey, this guy's always here with me no matter what. I'm not cycling through people every day.
Right. It's rare. It's rare that a social worker will stay on the case. Like even as a teacher, if child welfare services gets involved, I can interact with several different, caseworkers within one school year.
Yeah.
Because the turnover rate is so high.
Yeah. And so I think that we've just learned so much because of really your commitment to the kids and to journeying with them, not just when things are good, but even when things are really hard, and being able to celebrate those wins with them throughout the course of, them becoming more and more independent. And I think that's why having you guys lead the independent living program that we partner with Kids with Purpose International for is just such a gift. And I wanted to talk about the program and what it is and what is the significance of working with children who are aging out of the system. So this idea of aging out of the system is something that I think in the Philippines, we've only recently started to talk about. Like, used to just be orphanages, and that's all we ever talked about because the needs were so great. But I think as we try to get better, there are more and more conversations about children aging out. And how do we do that well? And how do we come alongside them and support them in a way that's meaningful? I think that's really what this program's about. So could you guys tell us a little bit more about your heart for that, how all of this came about, and why you guys decided to say, we live in Texas, but, but we're in it for the kids of the Philippines. So.
Right. I think the benefit for, and I can't credit myself for this. I could only credit God and my professor and the people that, sewed into me. But the benefit of staying connected to the orphanage for so long is I got to build relationships with not only the staff, but the children. And so I've seen the kids grow up. I've witnessed kids brought in and seeing them in the state of crisis, where they're maybe not nourished in you can see that they've been rescued from a place of pain. Yeah. And then I've seen them be taken care of and heal within the home. I've seen some get adopted and I've seen some age out. And so through that time, I've just realized that the kids that I've seen grow up there, I've been a part of their lives. Then once they leave, the connection is just severed unless they find me on social media or something.
Right.
And a lot of times the ones that did find me, I would see the places that they ended up, and they weren't a good place. It wasn't a place that I would want anyone I know or love being in.
Right.
And so it was something that was just really pressing on my heart of like, we have to do something more. We could do this better. There has to be a route.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in the States, we definitely see this trend of foster cares could be a pipeline to prison or a pipeline to homelessness.
Right.
The number of people that are adults and homeless that were in the foster system at some point or even in prison is astronomical. And so imagine that that's the same trend here. How can we disrupt that?
Right.
And it has to come with this holistic approach that we're not just going to house a child or a young adult and just put them in an apartment and give them money to eat. That's not what's going to bring that lasting change and stability to their life.
Right.
We need a holistic approach, like I said, which comes in the form of ensuring that they have therapy accessible to them to work through past traumas that they endured in the home or in other institutions they were in.
Right.
As well as looking at having a very firm spiritual foundation that is ongoing within their life. And then we're looking at having at least one really strong relational person in their life to walk through this whole journey with them.
Right.
We can't just expect to say, oh, go get a job, go fill out this form, and they just know how to do it. It's just not going to work that way. Right. But we see so much success when there's at least one really caring adult who says like, I'm your guy or I'm your girl. I'm going to walk through this life with you. And I'm going to be there to help you figure this out. And we're going to navigate this together. Yeah. They don't have to have all the answers, but they're going to be that person who's there to help them.
Right. And I think that, the Filipino culture, and I could be, mistaken in this, but I feel like the orphan children here are in a sense more vulnerable because your culture is collective. We're maybe as in America, we're very individualistic. Right. And so these kids, your whole society is built around family. Your identity is tied to that. And so these children who have grown up without that, they're at a deeper loss, of a complete loss of their identity and who they are. And so in seeing that, our vision, our mission is to be a bridge between institutional care and independent living. And Kevin and I were discussing this, and we're talking about, a bridge is to reconcile two things. And so in this child's life, there's been a lot of broken foundations. The family system's broken, safety is broken. And so how can we repair the gap, the space between a thriving, independent life and then this place of brokenness that they're coming from? And we truly believe that the church is called to be that bridge, to be that pathway that connects the two. And so that's how we got into this. That's our vision in the mission of supporting teenagers aging out of orphan care.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. One of the things that the children's home, I don't think you mentioned which children's home it was, but the children's home that you have long-standing relationship with. I also encountered in the early days of starting like the work of Generations Home and trying to figure it out. And your friend's mother-in-law happened to be the same person, you know, who was really mentoring me and helping me shape the work that we were doing. And I remember her telling me that there were a lot of children that were starting to get older and, you know, hadn't been adopted yet. And kind of the overall age group of the home was increasing, right? We didn't have a room full of toddlers anymore, or like, you know, young children. Suddenly we had preteens and entering into the teen years and needing to make plans for them. And I asked her, I said, you know, what can we do to help? And she said, could you help us prepare them for life outside of this orphanage? Because the reality is that inside an institution, no matter how family-like it might be, it's just family-like. It doesn't take the place of a family. And I was thinking, but this is an incredible place to live, right? I just thought about what an excellent job this home was doing at raising young people, discipling them. They loved Jesus. You know, like these were kids who were full of faith. And I just thought, despite all that, if we were to discharge them at the age of 16, 17, 18, whenever that might be, all of that goes down the drain.
Right.
All of the good work that was put in throughout the course of their entire childhood is gone.
Right.
If this person does not have a loving, trusting, caring adult in their life, or doesn't have a plan or the tools to succeed in life independently.
Right.
And it's just, I think it's something that we often don't take the time to like think about. It's just easy to just think about kids in the orphanage and what we can do for them. But the reality is that all of these kids many of these kids are aging out.
Right.
Yeah. And I think one of the kind of points that got us even to where we are now is 2024. Yeah. July 2024. Not even that
a
long
year ago. I was like, that was like a year ago.
Yeah. We were here. We come in July, and we were meeting up with a youth that was at the orphanage and had left, and he'd been gone for years, but we were meeting up with him, and I was like, man, I got to stay in touch with this guy.
Yeah.
A young adult. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do better when I leave. And we did, we stayed in touch, and through our ongoing communication, I was like, he's really struggling. He's really having a hard time.
Right.
We would talk through that and encourage him. And then in December, another youth that we knew was kind of on his own and was struggling too. And we were like, okay, we got to do something. Like, I don't know what we're going to do. I think this was
2023.
It was 2023. I didn't want to correct you.
No, it's okay. I was like, I'm just trying to, I was like, okay.
Yes.
No, you're good.
It was 2023 in July. And then in December of that year.
Which is kind of how all this started, right?
Yes. And then we were like, okay, Ashley, we're about to do something. And it was amazing because we were just gung ho about doing it. We're like, we don't know how we're going to do this. Are we going to start our nonprofit? Or we're going to have to figure this out, because we need to step in and help these youth and really help move them along and make sure that they feel loved and supported and help them transition into adulthood correctly.
Right.
And so we just jumped in and, you know, started contacting whoever we could. We ended up, you know, with Generations Home and saying, we can start funding stuff if you guys can help us on the ground.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think, you know, like I do want to like paint a picture of the system, right? Like everybody's doing the best they can. Yeah. And I think that it's through a relationship. Like I think about that particular young man, right? And you wouldn't have known that he was struggling if you didn't have a relationship with him. You wouldn't have known what the needs were if you weren't walking alongside of him as a friend, as a mentor, as kind of like a big brother even, right? And so many times we put these like structures and programs and like, you know, and we think that's the solution. But a lot of times it's these really deep relationships that we have with them that help us identify what they need. And we could make all these assumptions about what they need, but I mean, like, how many times are we wrong about that, right? Like we think they need, you know, a motorcycle to get to school, but actually that's absolutely not what they need, you know? And so I don't know. What's the journey been like for you as you start to understand the realities in the Philippines, the context that these young people are living in, and just like, what are their needs? What are you discovering about that particular group of young people that are transitioning out of care?
It's definitely been a learning experience. We started this with like, okay, we have experience in the US, that system, and we know how to help young adults transition in the US, but here it's very different.
Right.
And so it's definitely been a learning curve for us over this, just over a year now.
Right.
And really like trying to not step on toes and be like, okay, well, let's do this sensitively and make sure that we know kind of what we're getting into, because things are different. But it has been really good because we are getting to that place where, the youth that we're helping can tell us like, hey, that's not really what I need. What I need is this.
Right.
And then we can have those really direct conversations of what would that look like? Here's, what the limit we have, like, how can we navigate this and kind of work things out to where you feel like you're heard and your needs are being met. But at the same time, they're moving you forward to be more independent.
Yeah.
Right. I think it definitely has opened my eyes to just a lot of the challenges that young adults face here in the Philippines of like finding a job. It's just so difficult. It's not like, I was, talking to a friend and I was like, here in the United States, when you're 15, you can ask your neighbor, can I mow your lawn?
Right.
And you can start earning some income.
Yeah.
And then here, those options are not really there. And so how can we help these young adults who have very limited education? And that's one of the main things of our program is we're pushing for every young adult to get at least their high school education and hopefully college. But how are we going to get them into the workforce when the job market here it's so limited?
Right.
And so learning that system, learning how to navigate that, talking to people on the ground, like, we're so thankful for you guys at Generation Home and Kids with Purpose International and all the insight that you guys can give us, because again, resources isn't enough. We really need partners, people willing to coach, to be there for the kids, to guide them, to walk with them through a lot of failures. In the short time that we've done this, there's been a lot of setbacks with plans that we think, okay, this is it. Once we get this settled, we're going to be moving forward in the right direction. And something happens that disrupts that plan. And then I think where a challenge, I feel at least, is like, I'm not here physically to journey through that process with that young adult. And so I really rely and depend upon people here to fill that role, because I know that role is probably the most important. Who's going to be sitting with that young person when they're not accepted into college?
Right.
Who's going to be sitting with the young person when they don't get the job, when they're sick? I call my mom. I'm about to be 40 years old and I still call my mom when I'm sick. But who's going to answer their phone call?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, like I've seen you guys journey with the kids in the program over the last, just over a year now, and how when they are sick, and that's how that that's the power of relationship, right?
Yes.
Because when they are sick, they're not calling like their friend who lives down the street. They're calling Kevin like 3 a.m. like, hey, Kevin, I have a fever, right? You know what I mean?
It was that when we had just started and then two of our kids get into an accident on a motorcycle and they're calling me and I'm like,
I'm on the other side of the world.
I know. But yeah, they called us for some reason, and navigating that, through with them and making sure they're okay and what medical care they need and things like that. But it was.
And I think that's where you see what really matters, right? And I think, again, it's going back to the heart of this and hoping that people who are listening would catch that, right? That we could be that
for
some of these young people. Like, the kids in this particular program are a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the great need that exists, like in the Philippines, amongst young people who are aging out of care and their need to have loving, caring, safe adults in their life that they could call when they get into a motorcycle accident or when they have a fever or when they don't get the job they hope they would get.
Right.
Right. And like, I think it's really encouraging for me to hear that, because my hope is that more people would listen to this podcast and say, well, yeah, I can do that.
Right.
You know, like I can be that person. That doesn't cost any money.
Yeah.
But it does take a lot of time and investment in kind of building and getting to know these young people. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's something where we see so much fruit come out of that and so much joy to hear them on the other side and know how much of an impact it made. And not that we're like super awesome, but that God's so awesome that he's using us to help them through this really difficult time.
Right.
And so hearing those stories when they tell us about what things were like before and are now, it's just really awesome to be able to be a part of that.
Wow. I mean, maybe what we could do is you could tell us a little bit about just the uniqueness of this particular program. I've learned a lot from you guys, like I said, and there are things that in the process of like figuring out how we were going to come alongside these kids, we had a lot of conversations about things like, what are our expectations from one another, right? And some might think that if you're a program and you're helping, then there are no expectations, right? Like, I'm just going to help you. I'm just going to, what do you need? And we try to meet these needs without helping build their capacity for true independence. And so maybe you could talk us through what are some of the things that you've worked into this program that are unique and that you feel are really significant factors at helping young people truly become independent one day.
Yeah. So one big thing is that we have a expectation that, all of our youth are going to be enrolled in school, whether that's finishing their high school or college, that they're going, full time. And if they don't want to do that, then they can work full time, but we want to make sure that they're gaining skills to eventually be able to go out on their own.
Right.
What that looks, we would of course prefer them be in school. We feel like the education piece is really important. So we really do push for that, but that's not for everybody. And we understand that. We try to walk that line, but we're also there really encouraging them, like we talked about before, to have that person in their life that they can speak to and that they're connected to and that they're being very open and vulnerable with. One of the youth and I talk every Sunday morning, my time, it's their Sunday night, but every week we're on the phone and we're talking about how their week went, what's going on, how all these different aspects of their life are going. And really talking through some really difficult stuff sometimes. There's a lot of emotions regarding different things going on in their life. And so having that connection as well is really important. And that's not one of those things where we're like, oh, if you want a mentor or somebody, no, like who's your person that you're going to walk through this with? What does that look like?
Right.
Yeah. And of course we have, here's your budget and this is what your budget's going to be for food. And
so we're not like dictating like, hey, you spend 500 pesos on this every month.
They have a combined amount that they'll get and you got to make it work. You got to figure that out. Now,
because that's life.
That is life.
Right.
That's life for all of us. And so if you run out because you bought a pair of shoes instead of your dinner, you're going to have to really make it work. We don't swoop in and save the day by sending you some money through Gcash. Like that's not going to work. It's, you got to figure this out. You have to understand how to budget on your own.
But then also not necessarily on your own,
right?
Because the option is there for them to ask for help.
Yeah.
Hey, can you help me budget?
Right.
I need to apply for this job. Can you help me with the resume?
Sure.
I'm not understanding what it says. And so we are that sounding board to guide them through the process. But that's simply all we're doing is we're guiding them.
Right.
We're really empowering them to be independent, to make their own choices, to really think through matters. And yes, we'll process things with them, but we really want to give them a voice. I mean, they have a voice. We want to empower them to use their voice because so often in their upbringing, they were just voiceless, if I could say that. There was a system and they would fit into the system. Very rarely did they get to express their needs or their wants or their desires. It's here's what we can give you. You take it and you be grateful.
Right.
We don't want that. We want them to be involved in the process. We want them to feel like they're in control of their life, but we are here to guide and support and to walk the journey with you.
I can easily say I haven't agreed with every decision our kids have made, but we're supporting them and we're like, okay, we'll walk this out with you. And it makes us think about, I think, stories maybe in Acts 8:31, I think. So we see Philip, the Holy Spirit tells him like, hey, run alongside that chariot. Just listen to what that guy's doing. And Philip's running alongside this chariot and he's hearing this eunuch in there reading from the book of Isaiah. And Philip says, hey, do you know what you're reading? He's like, no, how could I unless somebody teaches me? And so we want to be those Philips that are running alongside these kids and saying, I'll teach you.
Right.
Like, I'm there to walk this out with you. And those can be really impactful moments when you're teaching them and you're really showing them and you're going along the road with them. And it's just a beautiful picture of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. And I think that's where we actually are able to break the orphan cycle, right? Like, because I think unfortunately what we see in the Philippines is that the outcomes are bad for children who've come from a vulnerable place, right? Like the likelihood of this cycle continuing is very high.
Yeah.
And unless you're able to break that cycle by giving them skills, giving them that sense of self-worth, right? The voice that they need and coming alongside them in community, right? Then only then are you able to truly break that cycle and help change the trajectory of where they're going. Because if not, they would just be heading down that same path, unfortunately, that their parents were on. And that's a scary thought. What are some of the things that have made you most proud in the last, tell me some of the greatest joys that you've had in the last couple of years of doing this and in your work. I mean, Ashley, you too, in your work with vulnerable children in the Philippines, because I don't know if you mentioned it, but you've been coming back almost every year.
Yes.
For a while.
For 16 years.
Yeah, that's a long time. And, a lot of people go on vacations and they get to see the world. And for the last 16 years, you've been coming to the Philippines to give back and to love on the children here. And so what have been some of the most rewarding parts of your journey in doing that and in this program that's coming to 2 years with the independent youth?
Oh, gosh. The first thing that comes to my mind, it's going to sound so cliche, but it's true. I mean it with all my heart. I'm just a girl who loves Jesus. That's really it. And all throughout scripture, God is closest to the most vulnerable. And it's during my time here, I see his hand so clearly, and I can recognize his voice amongst the noise of the world. And I feel so close to him and in the lives of the people that we're serving. It's as simple as that, is I want to be near him.
Right.
And these are the children he wants to be near, or he is near to. He wants to be near all of us. But I know his presence is here with them. Gosh, more so his heart is there. All throughout scripture, you're going to read about that and see how his heart is for the fatherless. It's for the vulnerable. It's for the weak. It's for the oppressed.
Yeah.
And that's been the greatest joy is walking closely with him and something that he cares so much about.
Wow. You're going to have to top that.
Oh, I don't know if I can. I can say that I remember when we were first starting, we had a youth who was doing delivery driving. So just on the scooter and he didn't know what to do. He's just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he thought he was making money. Yes. He thought he was making money. He was actually making negative money probably every day. And I was like, you should go to school, go to college. He said, no, I can't. I don't think I can do that. And eventually he agrees and he enrolls in school in college, and he has excelled in school. He's been on the dean's list for the first 2 semesters. And now he's seen himself I can graduate and I can do really well in school. And I want to be on the dean's list every semester. And I have these huge plans now. Whereas before it was,
I'm just trying to survive.
I'm just surviving. he even said one time, like, I would skip meals. He'd eat maybe two times a day.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have enough money for food. And now, like, he's just thriving educationally and spiritually and relationally. And it's just a different person.
Yeah.
You know, just that weight has been lifted off. And it's just really awesome to see the transformation that he's been going through. And it's nothing that we've done. We've just allowed God to use us, and God is like ministering to him and showing him these amazing things. And now I 100% know that he will go forward, and he's, you know, studying social work, and he will be an amazing social worker based on what he's gone through and his heart for other people who are struggling and vulnerable. He's going to change the world, and hopefully he changes his country a lot in that process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been really nice to just have a front row seat at seeing him even develop like the confidence to do things that 2 years ago he would have never attempted. It would have just been too daunting, too big, too scary. Mm-hmm. And to see him walk confidently into those things is just such a testament of God's goodness to him and how he's used the program to really impact lives. Right. I know there are actually a lot of people in the United States that have come alongside you guys and have said yes to partnering with the work that's happening in the Philippines. And I just wanted to like hear some stories from them and like, what are some of the things that you guys are doing on the ground? And, you know, our hope is that people are listening and more people would want to get involved. Like, what's going on? Like, how do you guys raise your support in the US? And like, how do you help them see what's happening all the way around the world? Right. And tell us about what that journey's been like so far.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It was definitely an eye opener to me when we started like actively raising support.
What was different from what you expected?
So I've, you know, Ashley and I have done youth ministry for almost 20 years now at our local church. And so through that, and then as well through, I did homeless ministry in our community for 13 years. And so we've built a lot of very close relationships with people that we've done hard ministry with very vulnerable people. Yeah. And so you build a lot of really close connections, and you think like, hey, we're going to do this, and everybody that we know is going to jump on board with our calling and our, you know, the purpose that we're trying to fulfill here. And then when that doesn't happen, you're like, dang, that really hurt me. Like that hurt my heart a little bit. But luckily we have really strong mentors that talk through that with us. And now I'm past that and it's fine. But that was definitely a challenge. You know, you think that everybody's going to rally for the same cause that God has put on your heart. And when it doesn't happen, it's just. And
different people are called, you see like, okay, different people are called to serve in different capacities and different places. And it just so happens this is on my heart, and I can't necessarily judge everybody for not being as excited about it as I am.
Yes. Yeah.
I think, you know, one of the things where I've seen myself grow a lot is I had to have a mind shift. And when I love something, I study it. You know, I want to know everything I can about it and understand it. And so when we started this, I started taking all these nonprofit classes, all these fundraising classes. I'm just trying to learn as much as I can. And there was one class that I took, and it really ministered to me. And it says, as an advocate, you know, as someone raising awareness, your ministry is your supporters. You know, your job is to serve them, and to minister to them. And so once I had that kind of mindset shift, of, okay, these aren't just people I'm just given an ask to. Yeah. I'm going to, you know, invest my time in them. I'm going to build relationship. I'm going to share stories of success and fears and prayer requests with them. That seemed to really change our success, I guess, or just the flow or the relationship or the support that we were receiving, because people, they want to be a part of something that matters and that is impactful. And a lot of times, really, they just need to understand fully the big picture, you know, and once they see that, it's it's really hard to say no to something that God is doing. And it's not always monetary. It's not always funds.
Right.
You know, sometimes I have friends that just help me. If I'm doing an event, you know, they come and they keep me sane. They organize, they decorate, you know, they're just supporting me in that way. I have other friends that will go out. So we've been doing these things. It's, you know, Kendra Scott in the United States. She has this thing called Kendra Gives Back.
Okay.
And so because we're a nonprofit, we can apply for that. And what they do is they give you 2 hours and you could go to the store and talk to the customers. And then 20% of the proceeds that they from their sales goes to your organization. And so I have a group of friends and they go spend 2 hours with me just talking to all the customers.
So cool.
Yes. And that's all. They just give me 2 hours of their time and it raises money for our cause. And it's just so simple. You know, you're talking to people, buying jewelry, you know, that's fun, you know, and so it's real easy to become involved.
Yeah. And I think we've seen kind of both sides where we have the people that they've never been here.
Yeah.
We're trying to convey this, you know, reality here to them, to get them behind us. And then we have people like, you know, Hannah, she came with us. We brought her, one of our old youth students. She became an adult and we were like, hey, let's go with us. Come see what's going on. And she came with us and she is a huge supporter because she's been here.
Right.
And she's interacted with the kids that are now older and leaving. And she's like, man, we know we can call Hannah and she's got our back. You know, our nephew's like, hey, I can do social media. I can create content for it. You know, people are
he's
willing.
He's 15.
Yeah, he's 15. But he says, you know what? That's my skill. I can do that. And we're like, hey, you don't have the money. That's perfectly fine. He has a skill that he wants to give to this ministry. And so it doesn't have to be the financial part.
Right.
It's just, what can you do? And like, how do you want to help this cause, this mission?
When I was, you know, thinking about this question and I was reminded of John the Baptist when he's going out and baptizing people and all these people are coming and they want to be baptized. And he's explaining to them, hey, you know, baptism isn't the end all. You know, once you give your life to Yahweh, once you're living for him, it should be displayed in the way you live.
Right.
And they're like, well, okay, well, what do we do? He goes, well, if you have 2 coats, give them 1. If you have food, give them food. Just whatever you have, share. It's that simple. You know, if it's time, give your time. Yeah. If it's helping on social media, help on social media, share a post, you know, tell some friends. It's been funny because, you know, Filipinos are everywhere.
Yes, they are.
Every nurse I've ever had is a Filipina. And so just even from starting this and my friends knowing about what I'm doing, they'll be like, oh yeah, we were just, you know, I was at the doctor and my nurse was a Filipina or something. And I told them, oh, my friend does this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how word spreads. Just sharing.
Yeah. And I think that's so important for people to know that, like, I mean, honestly, that's how we got into this space, right? Like, it's not like we had this grand master plan. It's like, okay, this is what I know how to do.
Right.
And I guess I could use this, right? Like, that's pretty much all I've got. You know, like when we started Generations Home, it was like, well, I know how to do some marketing. Right. I guess that's what we do. Right. And then like just little things like having these conversations. And if you're listening to this podcast, like, please tell others about the work that's happening in the Philippines and like help us get more people involved because the need is so great. And I know that you guys have big dreams and big hopes for the program. And in order to do that, it's going to take a collective effort from a lot of people saying we're behind these young people and we want to lock arms with them. And we might not be able to be there in the flesh, but we have financial resources that we can send their way. And, you know, that's how they might want to partner. So like, could you give us an idea of like, what does it take to partner with Kids with Purpose International and Generations Home and supporting some of the independent youth? I know that we're getting ready because we're seeing that there might potentially be more young people being added to the program, which means that the needs are increasing. There is currently some need at hand. So if people wanted to be partners, like what are the ways and how do you present that to them?
Yeah. So definitely the Generations
Home
webpage. Yeah. You guys have a link as well that you can use that to raise funds. Also, the Kids with Purpose International has their own
link as well,
on their kwpi.org. There is a specific tab for independent living. I think it's actually partnering from the US.
Yeah.
We'll bring up a page that's devoted to the independent living program that we're working with these.
You can link all of that.
Yes. So you can go in there and there's a spot that you can support.
Yeah, you can support financially, or you could even just fill out a form of letting me know your interest. So once that form is filled out, I do get an email and, I can make a phone call. I can talk.
Yeah.
We can explore ideas. I want it to be fun and creative of ways. The women's ministry at my church just did a Balik Bayan box.
Yes.
They had a little boxing party.
And it was six boxes that we sent over.
Yes, they so cool. I saw, if you guys go on to the Kids with Purpose International Instagram page, right? They're like pictures of the kids opening the boxes and
and so that's something fun, and it's just a fun way to be involved, and then it's just awesome to kind of see the bridge of the cultures connecting. Like I remember that night when they're filling the boxes. There was this young group of young adult girls, and they're like literally stuffing this, trying to get everything to fix. And I was like, this is the fun part of it. That's what makes it so awesome. And so there's just lots of ways, so just getting in contact with me, which they could do through that form online.
Okay. On the website, and probably also like getting on the newsletter.
Yes. Yeah. Subscribing to our newsletter. Yes. Which will also be on the website.
Right. Okay. So tell us, what are your hopes for what does the future look like, and where do you see this program going? Yeah. And maybe just like an invitation for more people to get involved and jump in with us. And, we can't do this alone. So
we definitely want to see it grow. We have a lot of kids that have a lot of needs. And so trying to continue to bring in funding, because we do need to pay for them to live somewhere, and they need a budget for food and schooling and clothes and all these things that we're trying to provide, really wanting to grow the number of youth in the program, because the youth are there.
Yeah.
We just have to have the funding to make sure that we can provide them the type of care that they need.
Right.
And so really wanting to see it expand, our kids, they'll be in school for 4 years or more.
Yep.
So, we're in it for the long haul here. Some of them have talked about becoming lawyers, which is an extra couple of years. And so one of them the other day was saying he wants his PhD. And I'm like, okay, there's 6 years. So we definitely have youth that are dreaming really big in what they want to do. And we want to be there to see them flourish and to see them grow into that. But we need, partners to come alongside with us, and not that we need everybody to give money, but maybe you can be that one that meets with one of them every week and just really becomes close to them and walks through life with them and just be there for them. And
I think that's our ask to the church, right?
Yes.
Like right now, local churches in the Philippines. If you're listening and you're like, I don't live in the United States, and I do have time, and I would love to jump in and get involved. You guys could reach out to us on the Generations Home side about wanting to get involved, because you could be that Kevin, you know what I mean? You could be Kevin to somebody else.
Yeah. Right. And what's really interesting is thinking about this. A lot of the times we get questions, because obviously the foster care system or orphanage system in the DSWD in the Philippines is very different than in America, funding wise and everything. But we often get asked well, doesn't the Philippine government, isn't it their job to care for these kids? And the response to that would be long before the Philippines were even a country, or America was a country, God told his children, you take care of them. It's your job to care for the vulnerable. It's your job to care for the orphans. It's your job to do all of these things. He put that on his children. So his church now should pick up that mantle, as we see in the New Testament, and you guys run with that, and you guys take care of these children. We're not going to look to the government to do it when Yahweh, the Lord of everything, has told us to step into those kids' lives and make sure that they are okay.
Right. It's truly a command, from God. And that would be my dream and my vision, is for the global church to really step up and assume their role in the world, and come alongside organizations that care, for orphans or for the vulnerable, and to be that light, to be that city set upon the hill. I'd love for churches to be the mentors to the kids. I'd love for the people in the church to open up their businesses, to give the youth jobs, to help them find work. I'd love for the church to welcome in kids, to be a host family, to foster them, just to say, hey, every weekend you could come and stay with us.
Right.
You could come do your laundry. I think about when I was in college and I'd drive home and take all my laundry and do it at my mom's house, families to just say, hey, come use my washer and dryer.
Or come to our house on Christmas or these big holidays that they're sitting at home or in their dorm by themselves. They don't have a family to go with for those really special occasions and their birthdays and all these different events. They're by themselves. So they need families to sit with and to celebrate with.
Right. And, telling a story, and maybe you could cut this if you don't like it. But, I think of one of the boys in our program on his birthday, we decided as a group, let's let him get his friends and go out to dinner. Right. We're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way. There should have been someone other than this organization that did that for him. That is a failure on us as God's people and his children, that an organization, a nonprofit, had to step in and do that work. Right. That he had to have his birthday dinner with a social worker.
No, and I think that's where that breaks my heart. And, it's the hard truth that we face every day as we work with these kids. But I think for me, it's understanding, and I've come to understand that, a lot of things are easier done if we just did it ourselves. Like as a nonprofit, it would be a lot easier to do some of this stuff ourselves.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm like, it's okay, I'll do it. You know? But we're robbing the church of an opportunity to step in and be the hands and feet.
Right.
And to take on that call as God's children to care for these vulnerable young people in our communities. I mean, they are not far away. I mean, I live in the Philippines, and so I can say that these children are not far away. They are not out of reach.
Right.
You can walk outside your house, and there are children that need what we have, not the money that we have, but the relationship and the care, and the somebody to say that shouldn't have to be a nonprofit paying for your birthday dinner.
Right.
And you shouldn't have to have a social worker hang out with you and your friends.
Yes.
It should have been, a friend, someone from church, somebody that that you truly wanted to celebrate your birthday with.
Right.
But and I think that our hope, I share that with you guys, that our hope is really that we would see the global church rise up near or far, right? That we would all jump in and say, this is what I have. Here's, this is what's in my hand, God. And, would you do something really miraculous with it in the lives of the young people around us?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think he's more concerned that we're doing something than like how much money we're giving. I don't think he's like, man, you didn't give enough to that child aging out of care. He doesn't worry about that because he knows that if it's in your heart, then it will grow and it will change and move in different directions. But if you're just doing something, if you're in there, then that's all that he needs to fully change the situation.
Right. Wow. Well, thank you guys so much. It was like a deep breath. Just like, ooh, it's a lot. And I just want to thank you guys so much. Again, I can't, stress it enough for pouring your lives into the children that we serve together. And they truly do love you because of just how genuine your compassion is for them and how relational you've made this approach that none of the kids in this program feel like they're in a program,
right? Which
I think is the greatest win of all. Like, I don't think they even realize that there's a program behind it. And I think that that's really That's a really beautiful thing. That's exactly how we want it to be. And obviously we want to do things right and make sure we do a good job of taking care of them. But it's so natural. And it's something that we hope would be modeled across other organizations as well. And that if you're listening to this podcast and you want to steal all these ideas, please do.
Yes.
Like that's our absolute hope, is that we'd see more and more organizations transitioning their models of care into more relational models, into models that really support youth who are working towards independence. So thank you so much, Kevin and Ashley. We're going to make sure that we provide the information in the notes so that everybody can stay in touch, get on that newsletter, and figure out how you guys are going to jump in.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks,
thank you. All right.
That was the Family is the Answer podcast by Generations Home, powered by Podcast Network Asia. Learn more about ending the orphan crisis and fueling our work through our website, generationshome.org. You can also find us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you found this podcast helpful, please leave us a rating so more people can find it too. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you at our next episode.